solve logarithmic equations, we can do it a couple different ways. The first way I'm going to do is rewrite the log as an equation. So we always have the base first, so 36 to the 3/2 power equals x. Now that I have an equation, one way is we can change the 36 into 6 squared. So basically we change it into an exponent. And we have another exponent of 3/2. Now exponents to the parentheses of exponents mean to multiply. So if I multiply 2 times 3/2, the 2's basically cancel out. And we end up with 6/3. And 6/3 equals 216. That's one way of doing it. Now the other way of doing it is to use square roots. And we could do 36 3/2 equals x. And 3/2, a fraction, means we're going to take the square root of 36 cubed. So by doing that, we can take 36 cubed, which gives us 46,656, and the square root of that then equals 216. So we get the same exact answer by either using square roots and using a calculator or doing exponents. So let's try this other example. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to write 9 to the 3/2 equals x. So we're just converting from logarithm into an equation. So if I take the 9 and write it as 3 squared, and I use my fraction, once again the 2's cancel out, and this time it's 3 cubed equals x. 3 cubed is 27. Now if we do it with the square root, I'm going to write it as a square root of 9 cubed. And 9 cubed is 729, and the square root of 729 is 27. So I get the same answers. So you want to work with fractions and change your number around like this one, or do you want to multiply in your calculator 9 cubed and then take the square root of that? So one of the rules of log is if you have the same base, and we have the same base here and the same base here, then if this log equals that log, then the actual equation, x squared minus 4, equals 3x. So the two logs equal each other, and so now we can solve. Once we know this, to solve, we're going to make this a quadratic by subtracting the 3x to both sides, which creates a quadratic equation equals 0. And we can solve this in one of two ways. One way is the quadratic formula, which is x equals a negative b plus minus b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. There's your a equals 1, your b equals negative 3, your c equals negative 4, and plug into the formula. The other way is factoring. So I'm going to factor this. And factoring is what two numbers multiply to give me negative 4 and add up to a negative 3, which would be a negative 4 and a positive 1. And once you have it factored, you make each part equal to 0. So x minus 4 equals 0, x plus 1 equals 0, and if I add 4 to both sides, x equals 4, minus the 1, x equals a negative 1. So there are my two answers to this problem. If you plug into the quadratic formula, you will get the same answers. So let's try this next problem. We notice that they both have the same base of 3. Since they have the same base, then the logs equal each other. So x squared minus 15 equals 2x. And now I just solved the equation. So I'm going to move my 2x over to make it equal 0. So once again, I get a quadratic equation. And you can use the quadratic formula to solve this or factoring. So I'm going to use factoring when I can factor. And in this case, I know that minus 5 and plus 3 equal a negative 15. And when I add, I get a negative 2. So I factored. Now factoring is just getting so we can create an equation. So each factor equals 0. and then I solve it, and this one will equal 5, and then this one equals a minus 3. And so I've solved my log because the bases are the same.